Ruin seize thee, ruthless king, confusion on thy banners wait. Though fanged by conquest's crimson wing, they mock the air with idle state. Helm nor hauberk's twisted mail, ne even thy virtues tyrant shall avail. To save thy secret soul from nightly fears, from Cambria's curse, from Cambria's tears. From Cambria's tears. Such were the sounds that o'er the crested pride of the first Edward scattered wild dismay, as down the steep of Snowdon's shaggy side he wound with toilsome march his long array. Stout Gloucester stood aghast in speechless trance. "To arms!" cried Mortimer, and couched his quivering lance. "To arms!" On a rock whose haughty brow frowned o'er old Conway's foaming flood, robed in the sable garb of woe, with haggard eyes the poet stood. Loose his beard and hoary hair streamed like a meteor to the troubled air, and with a master's hand and prophet's fire struck the deep sorrows of his lyre. Hark how each giant oak and deserted cave sighs to the torrent's awful voice beneath. O'er thee, O King, thy 100 arms they wave. Revenge on thee in hoarser murmurs breath. Vocal no more, since Cambria's fatal day, to high-born Hall's harp or lofty Llewellyn's lay. Cold as Cadwallow's tongue that hushed the stormy main, brave Urien sleeps upon his craggy bed, mountains ye mourn in vain. Modred, whose magical song made huge Plinlimmon bow his cloud-topped head. On dreary Arvon shore they lie, smeared with gore and ghastly pale, far, far aloof the affrighted ravens sail. The famished eagle screams and passes by. Dear lost companions of thy tuneful art, dear as the light that visits these sad eyes, dear as the ruddy drops that warmed my heart, ye died amidst your country's cries. No more I weep, they do not sleep. On yonder cliffs a grisly band, I see them sit, they linger yet, avengers of their native land. With me in dreadful harmony they join, and weave with bloody hands the tissue of thy line. And weave with bloody hands the tissue of thy line. Weave the warp and weave the woof, the winding sheet of Edward's race. Give ample room and verge enough the characters of hell to trace. Mark the year and mark the night, when Severn shall re-echo with affright the shrieks of death through Berkeley's roof that ring, shrieks of an agonizing king. She-wolf of France with unrelenting fangs that taste the bowels of thy mangled mate, from thee be born, who over thy country hangs, the scourge of heaven, what terrors round him wait. Amazement in his van, with flight combined, and sorrow's faded form, and solitude behind. Mighty victor, mighty lord, low on his funeral couch he lies. No pitying heart, no eye afford a tear to grace his obsequies. Is the sable warrior fled? Thy son is gone, he rests among the dead, 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 dead. The swarm that in thy noontide beam were born, gone to salute the rising morn. Fair laughs the morn and soft the zephyr blows, while proudly riding o'er the azure realm, and gallant trim the gilded vessel goes, youth on the prow and pleasure at the helm. Regardless of the sweeping whirlwind's sway, that, hushed in grim repose, expects his evening prey. Fill high the sparkling bowl, the rich repast repay, Reft of a crown, he yet may share the feast, close by the regal chair. Fell thirst and famine scowl a baleful smile upon their baffled guest. Heard ye the din of battle bray, lance to lance and horse to horse? Long years of havoc urge thy destined course, and through the kindred squadrons moor their way. Ye towers of Julius, London's lasting shame, with many a foul and midnight mirth fed, revere his concert's faith, his father's fame, and spare the meek usurper's holy head. Above, below, the rows of snow, twined with her blushing foe, we spread the bristled boar in infant go, wallows beneath thy thorny shade. Now, brothers, bending o'er thy accursed loom, stamp we our vengeance deep, and ratify his doom, his doom, his doom, his doom, his doom. Edward Lowe to sudden fate weave the woof the thread is spun. Half of thy heart we consecrate, the web is wove, the work is done. Stay, oh stay, nor thus forlorn, leave me unblessed, unpitied here to mourn. In yon bright track that fires the western skies, they melt, they vanish from my eyes. But oh, what solemn scenes on Snowdon's height, descending slow their glittering skirts unroll. Visions of glory spare my aching sight, ye unborn ages crowd not on my soul. No more our long-lost Arthur we bewail. All hail, ye genuine kings, Britannia's issue, hail! Hail, hail. Girt with many a baron bold, sublime their starry fronts they rear, and gorgeous dames and statesmen old in bearded majesty appear. In the midst of form divine, her eyes proclaim her of the Briton line. Her lion port, her awe-commanding face, a tempered sweet to virgin grace. What strings symphonious tremble in the air, what strains of vocal transport round her play. Here from the grave great Taliesin here, they breathe a soul to animate thy clay. Bright rapture calls, and soaring as she sings, waves in the eye of heaven her many-coloured wings. The verse adorn again, fierce war and faithful love, and truth severe by fairy fiction dressed, in buskined measures move. Pale grief and pleasing pain, with horror tyrant of the throbbing breast, a voice as of the cherub choir. Gales from thy blooming Eden bear, and distant warblings lessen on my ear, that lost in long futurity expire. Fond impious man, think'st thou, you sanguine cloud, raised by thy breath, has quenched the orb of day? Tomorrow he repairs the golden flood, and warms the nations with redoubled ray. Enough for me, with joy I see the different doom our fates assign. Be thine despair and sceptred care, to triumph and to die are mine. To triumph and to die. He spoke, and headlong from the mountain's height, deep in the roaring tide, he plunged to endless night, to endless night, endless night, endless night. I hope that in all of this world, everything you touch shall crumble to dust. The poet's voice rattled in the harsh wind. You may think that you have victory on your side, but your flags... He paused and pointed at the hordes of men below him. Your banners will not always flutter on the side of the one who is the winner. If you have any goodness in you, though I doubt it, if you have any goodness in your heart, then you will not survive all of the true-born Welshmen who will curse you. It will not protect you from the sting of all of our tears. The one who was known as Edward I, new-crowned son of King Henry III, was riding at the front of the long snake of his tired men as they tried to keep their footing and their saddles on the steep slopes of Snowdon. Their arms and their chainmail suits glistened wet in the dying rays of the sun. It was not as if this was the first time that they had been to this place. 2 campaigns had gone on before, and Edward wanted an end to this war with the rebellious Welsh. The king was not alone in all of his finery. By his side were 2 of his finest men and most loyal servants. His son-in-law, Gloucester, could not believe that the last of all of the Welsh bards was giving such a passionate speech, even though he was outnumbered and had no chance of escape. It had taken all words from his lips. Edmund de Mortimer was not struck dumb. He did not hesitate for a heartbeat. To arms and be done with them all! To arms and be done with them all! His voice echoed the thoughts of the weary king, and he was pleased to see his friend wanted to defend his lands from his neighbours, the Welsh, and protect the sovereignty of his king throughout the whole of the British Isles. The place that the bard had chosen to take his defiant stand appeared like the brow of a worried man as he would scowl out over the foaming River Conway. He was clothed in the traditional clothes of the ancient poets, and the howling, ceaseless wind pulled at his long white beard and blustered his curled, snow-white hair about his head. With his haggard eyes and restless stance, he looked like a bright, angry meteor against the gaunt black of the rock. Even in the throes of the terrifying wind, the bard still reached for his harp and plucked at the strings in the skilful way that he had done since being a child, and the sorrowful notes rang through the clear air. With the low and sad tones of the harp, the poet began again. Can't you hear it, your majesty? Can't you hear the wind as it whistles through the branches of the oak trees? Can't you hear the terrible hoarse moan of the very air that we breathe as it whistles and growls through the caves on this mountainside? Can't you hear the way that the dark air cries for revenge over you and your army? Are you such a fool that you do not know that there is no place for you as a king in Wales? The 100 branches of every tree tell you, beg you, scream at you to leave this place and never return, and even the poet, who was used to living in the mouth of the storm, had to stop to catch his breath. With his fingers raised, he tore at the air on this bleak mountainside. You shall never be forgiven what you have done to all of those fine Welsh poets before me, those that you have silenced. The poet stood to take a tearful moment to remember all of his companions that had been put to death by this ambitious, ruthless and savage king. It broke his heart to mention their names, and tears of rage and regret filled his eyes as he continued. Master Hoole shall no longer be known in this place for his fine harp and song. It was not enough to break the good Lord Llewellyn, who never did any man harm, other than declare himself a true-born son of Cambria. His songs and poems are all that are left to our nation. You! There was more than anger in the poet's voice. You have silenced Cadwallow's tongue, and it lies cold and without life. Cadwallow, who could calm a storm with his words, you have the blood of Urien, Mordred. He reminisced and spoke only for himself to hear. Magical Mordred. He had a song that could bow any man, all God's snow-capped head. For an instant, there was nothing but silence in the air as the storm took a chance to take another breath before it started its ceaseless rage. You! His finger was pointed and his eyes blazed with anger. You, Edward, that like my lord Llewellyn, I will never bow to as my true king. You chased them. You had them run out until there was no escape except the sharp and jagged rocks of these mountains. Their bodies lie on dreary Arvon shore, and I will tell you that the ravens are frightened of them. The eagles, even though they have hunger in their bellies, they will not come near them. I can see them. Every day I can see them. Their bodies covered with gore and blood, deathly pale and without life. They were my friends, my companions, my fellow bards who knew what it was to make magic with words. They died for what they believed in. I do not say that they have gone, for I can still see their broken bodies. The wind blows their bloodied hands as they sit together on the spattered rocks, proud for what they have done to protect the name of Cambria. All of the while, Edward and his men came ever closer, closer on the steep and treacherous paths on the side of the huge mountain. An army against a single man, whose belief in his country made him stronger than all of their arms and lances. You may think that you can beat me, just one frail man, but together with all of my companions, we sing a terrible song, and their lifeless lips will make a curse upon you and your family for what you have done, for what you have done. He rested for a moment to compose a curse that would make sure that the bloodline of Edward would not survive. If the shroud of Edward and all of his family could be woven now, it would be too late to save all that will come to his family. I would wish that those demons of hell would visit all of his ancestors, and they would know the way to find them by the evil that they have done. Someday soon, the Severn Valley will echo to the shrieks of a painful death to a savage king. He was not to be stopped. I hope that the war with France shall leave him like a corpse that is devoured by his own wife. Spittle was forming at the edge of the bard's lips as the venom that's poured from his mouth affected his thoughts and his body. You deserve nothing but a terrible, lonely fate at the hands and teeth of the hosts of those who have been refused entry to heaven. You! His tone was mocking. You, a mighty victor. You, a mighty lord. You do not deserve pity or even a tear for what will happen to you. You will have no friend, even when you wish to mourn those that you lose with your obsequies. Famine, havoc shall rain down upon you, and you shall know loneliness and retribution for all that you have done, Longshanks. You truly are the bore of this world, and I am glad that your French wife died. I am glad that you live in your towers of London, surrounded by blood and your loveless life, and the bodies of those that you have killed. The bard turned to face towards his grisly, dead companions on the rocks below. Now, my brothers, let us take to the loom to weave a winding cloth for this king, for this king. His words rang through the valley as he cursed the king and looked at the bodies of his long-dead friends. His work was done. He found that the bright light of the sun blinded him, and he could not see their bodies in the glare of its rays. "I cannot see you, my brothers, and I do not wish to be left here alone." He turned his pleading eyes to heaven. "Once we all thought, that King Arthur would return and be the true-born king of us all. We had all believed this, that we would be saved from the ruling of foreign kings. But I see that there is." His eyes became clouded, and the bright azure blue clearing of the sky as the sun for a moment burst through the storm. "I can see how sweet Britannia will be the true queen of us all. She is fair of form and sweet of grace. There is music once more in the air of these hills. Her voice is so sweet, she will return." In the vision that surrounded him, he allowed himself to feel happiness in his heart and a hope for the future of those that would follow. He turned one last time towards his ever-closing pursuers. "There is a choir of mighty angels in the air. Bright Phoebus's sunny golden glow will warm the nation and..." He stumbled wearily on his perch on the mountainside. "I have a joy in my heart as I can see all that will happen to us. The victory in this battle will be mine. I am the last of all of the bards. You have taken the lives of my brothers and spilled their blood upon the rocks and shores of our great country. You have had to build a ring of castles to keep this kingdom. We have had nothing but words as our shield and armour. Although I am the last, I shall triumph, as I will never be forgot. You shall die in despair, burdened by the weight of ruling a country where you shall never be regarded as a king." There was a look upon his face that took away the lines of age, and he looked as he would have looked when he was a child and his land knew freedom. "I have nothing but joy in my soul as I see that my fate is to die for my country." Like a high-born eagle, he fell from his place, high above the sea of eyes of Edward's army. Each soul that watched this spectacle, they were fascinated by his journey through the storm-filled air. They saw his body, but not his memory, fall into the roaring tide of the river and be gone into endless night. The Bard by John Martin. In the top left-hand corner of the picture, you can see an enormous, craggy mountain range cutting through the stormy, cloud-filled sky. The edges of the rock are hard and jagged and are not rounded by the terrible weather. The biggest of the peaks is covered with snow and reaches almost to the top of the picture. The whole of the range sweeps over towards the right-hand side of the piece. The sky and the clouds are dark in this corner of the picture. Below the mountains, and in the left-hand side of the painting, towards the middle, there is a white castle that has a large square keep with round towers at each of its four corners. At the top of the tower closest to us, there is a fluttering white flag. At the back of the castle, there are three other smaller towers, and at the front of the castle keep, there is an oblong building that stretches towards the edge of the gorge. Each corner has a round tower. The mountain in the middle of the upper half of the painting is almost the same shape as the castle. Beneath the castle, the rocks are smoother and covered with green plants, small bushes and trees. Cutting through all of this greenery, there is a path that leads to the entrance of the castle. At the bottom edge of the top left-hand corner, wagons and figures on horseback can be seen to be winding their way toward the foreground. In the top right-hand corner of the picture, there is a slight break in the clouds, and thick but white clouds can be seen to be lit by the sun. There is a cloud formation that seems to mirror the shape of the mountains and the castles. Below the white clouds, there is the opposite bank of the river. It is darker in colour and flatter. This outcrop stretches from a level just above the castle to the middle of the picture, with the rocks being arranged from right to left and lit from the right-hand side. The indistinct shadowy silhouette of two large birds can be seen on the middle outcrop. One has taken to the air with its wings outstretched, and the other has its wings folded to its side. Below the birds and towards the middle of the painting, there is a figure of an old man with a long white beard and long hair. The dark cloak on his back is being blown upwards, and he has his right arm raised and his hand open. The line of his hand follows the line of the mountain, and his left hand holds a golden, shoulder-height, V-shaped harp, which rests by his right foot and points across his body towards the right-hand side of the picture. His costume consists of a crimson-red tunic that is tied around his middle but leaves his legs bare. He is standing with his legs apart and at the edge of a high, flat stone outcrop above the river. In the bottom left-hand corner of the painting, the trees in the path are seen in bigger and greater detail, and individual trees and parts of the path can be clearly made out. There is a broad, foaming river that is in full flood and forms white rapids that stretch to the middle foreground of the whole painting. Left of the foreground of the bottom left-hand corner of the picture, men in armour and riding on white horses can be seen to be moving by the edge of the raging river. One horse can be seen to be rearing itself and its helmeted rider on its two hind legs. The long line of the men can be seen to lead from the castle and appear to be travelling towards the viewer. At the very bottom of the picture, in the middle foreground, the river descends towards the bottom of the scene, and it is studded by sharp rocks that have been cleaned by the current. In the bottom right of the picture, there is a huge block of flat, jagged, perpendicular rocks below the figure of the old man.